All right, Mopar people, welcome back to the channel. I'm just Mopar Joe. I'm trying to figure out today if the 360 that I took out of this Little Red Express truck actually belongs in the Little Red Express truck. So I figured who else better to ask than the professor, Shane Polito. Let's see what he had to say.
Joe gave me a call, and he was talking about he found an engine for a 1978 Little Red Express truck, right? And he's like, well, how do you tell what is what? So I, like a lot of people who are Mopars, I have this book here. Can you see this right here? The Mopar Engines book. This is like the Bible right here, this thing, right? This is what I learned everything. So then I go to my small block Mopar section, and just so you know that I'm not BSing, I tagged it, and right here it says, right there, that's your 1978 Little Red truck. That's exactly what they did. So what makes it special is that all it really is that the differences from the basic 1978 360 truck engine and the Little Red truck is this. This is it. They used a camshaft, and we'll get to this in just a second. It's a 2899206 that was used in the 1968 and later 344 barrel. So that's basically what made it. They used the valve springs with red dampeners from the 344 barrel with the above camshaft, so it was a matched combination. They used a valve spring retainer, standard replacement rotators used in the other truck engine, so it's basically standard right there. The carburetor was the large Stormal quad as the 1978 police application. So what they did is they used the hot rod camshaft, and they used a lot of the police interceptor or the police, parts. Like cop engine, cop brakes, cop this, cop that. Okay,
yeah, cop tires.
Yeah. So then the intake manifold is 1978 Police 360. It came with a windage tray, which was also a Police 360. The cam gear was a roller chain with sprockets from a Police 360, so it was like a double roller chain. It had a dual snorkel in the air cleaner with ducts through the radiator yoke for fresh air. It had a chrome valve covers and air cleaner on top. Mufflers are similar to the street Hemi. And also, too, it had a special transmission with shift capacity. So that was basically everything as far as that it came with. So then now we go back over to the camshaft. So what does it make it special? So in here, because it's got everything in here, it's got a little thing at the bottom down there where it says high performance cam update. And so that is your cam specs. The Chrysler produced a very popular high performance cam in their A engines, rear wheel drive, V8 hot rods. The 1968 340 cam, part number 2899206, was used in all 340 engines from 68 to 73. And so looking at the cam specs, let's make sure I get this correct. So they did advertised duration then. It was 276, 284 advertised duration. Lift at valve was 444, 453, and it was on a 112 LSA. Now, there was a few of these, though, that did come through because they discontinued this camshaft, and then they put in a cam, and they called it the Street Hemi profile. Okay, so the Street Hemi profile they would put in some of these things. And this is where it gets interesting, because the Street Hemi profile was a straight duration camshaft. It was 280, 280, 475, 475, but get this, it was on a 108 lobe separation angle. So that thing's
Pretty choppy.
that thing's going to talk to you. Yeah, it's pretty rowdy. And it was also, believe it or not, a solid cam. Well, actually, the very first models were hydraulic and then moved into a solid profile. And then they give the specs of, the first one was P4286630, and then they don't give the part number for the second design, which was solid. But as far as what makes it special was basically the camshaft on this. And then I looked up the cylinder heads, and the cylinder heads are really nothing special. Head number would have been 4027596, which basically is a 77 through 79 360, and they will have a 360 cast onto it. The head really to have was basically the 915 J head, which even in the book here it says that it had the same ports as the 340 high performance, but it just had the hardened seats on it. So 1977 through 1979, the 360, those were your two part numbers right there, and those were the casting numbers. And that's so it was basically just a standard reproduction engine. So what it made it special is when I looked at it and I read the package about it, it was the windage tray, the camshaft,
and the big thermoquad.
And the big thermoquad and the intake manifold is really what gave it that extra little kick. It did have a high-flowing exhaust on it. It doesn't mention it here, but I do know that because it had the two that went up on top. It just told the mufflers, but it did, as far as the manifolds, it was the high-flow police manifolds, and I've seen those in person. So Mr. Joe, there you go, man. That's everything I have on that.
Adding to that, I can see that this truck had the orange slightly higher stall converter in it. With the weight on it for the 360 balance. The sticker under the hood says 364 barrel, and the other sticker says 360 cubic inches. So we're certain it was a 360 truck, and most likely a Little Red Express. Here's another tag. But what about the engine? Because the engine itself could have came out of anything. So here's our Little Red Express engine, 360. You can see we have the correct part number on the head. The heads do have the 360 cast into them. They have the police style springs and retainers instead of exhaust rotators. Here's our intake number, which is the 4-barrel intake. Something else to add, a lot of people were concerned about that pad right there. They said that pad would be blank. This one is blank. So everything I can tell about this engine says that, there's our casting number, 10.5 of 78. Everything about this says it is a 360 Little Red Express engine. Something I wanted to check, I'm gonna get this camshaft out, look for a number on it, just like Shane said. And I wanna see how far, what's the compression height? How far are these pistons below deck in this engine before I pull it apart? Because it's getting a full rebuild and it's gonna be a lot stouter than it ever came from the factory. But just kind of knowing the factory spec, I'll be able to share the factory spec with you here. And that way, if you wanted to replicate this, you could. But I would bet money that they're probably just standard 360 pistons that are a mile down in the hole, and they just upgraded the cam, mostly cam, intake, carburetor, little exhaust and stuff like that. So let's take it apart and find out. Here's our Little Red engine. I do believe it's quite possible this thing's been rebuilt before. One, we did not have a double row timing set, but if it was a factory single row, I think it would have the plastic gears. So that's one thing to look at, besides this one being super worn out. Orange RTV, I don't ever think they use that from the factory, especially in this amount. But you can kind of see where it goes up to here. I'm not sure if the pan's been off yet or not. The heads, look at the amount of orange RTV in these head bolt holes. I don't know why someone thought they should gob it all into there, but it was definitely inside the bolt holes themselves. So I'm gonna pop this head's ready to come off. The other one still has one bolt in it. I'm gonna pop this thing off and look. Heads off. This is a Felpro 8553 PT blue gasket. You see all the orange RTV they love so much around that. And these look like just the old, let me toss that one. Just look like dog bowl pistons. I'm gonna roll it up to TDC and we're gonna measure that one. It's gonna be hard. I'm not gonna CC it obviously. But our bores don't look too terrible. I need to get that carbon off the top, but you can, that amount of carbon kind of shows you how far down that piston is. So our Little Red engine does not have any kind of performance pistons. I'm gonna get the head off and pop that cam out. We'll check a number. Camshaft is out. Cam bearings actually look really nice, probably because it's been rebuilt. Here's our number on this cam. Looks like TM626, something like that. So I don't know if that's some kind of melling replacement or what it is exactly. No idea on that one, but I've got a roll on her side now. I'm gonna pop that oil pan off, and while it's setting up like this, I'm gonna rotate her up so we can check that deck. TDC here. These are just Harbor Freight calipers. I'll get them zeroed back out right there. I'm gonna go straight through that hole in the piece of metal. So I'll just extend it. It's a pretty simple test here. This is not the most scientific way of doing this, but it works. There we are. 0.2 to 45. I'll slide my piece of metal out now, and I will measure the thickness of the metal at the hole itself. 0.1, 145. So that gives us roughly, and I say roughly, 110 thousandths for the top of that piston, different from the deck right there. So she's low, low, low on down. And certainly the dish is even lower than that. So I would guess 7.5 or 8-to-1 compression if it's lucky. Well, that is our Little Red Express 360. It seems that ours has suffered a rebuild at one point. Not in terrible shape, but really pleased that Mopar had made basically stock 360 block into one of the best performers for those years. So I appreciate y'all watching. Thanks to Shane Polito over at Slant Daily Garage for answering my question, and I'll catch y'all next time.